Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Great. That's working. Great. Hey.
Hey.
How exciting. Yeah, usually these things are quite fun. I literally, the PowerPoint just like crashed on me and I lost like I lost 2 slides. And those 2 slides were the Jed and Ellie Mae slides. So
Oh no, do you need them back?
I don't think we need them back.
I can tell the story without having a picture.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I literally just tried downloading the slideshow again. I was like, loading.
I'd
Great.
like to, I have found great success using Google Docs to do my presentations from. Then it's always saved. I always have the latest. I can't lose it. I hate PowerPoint.
Yep.
And I always have a printed copy with me. So in case all the electricity in the building goes out, I could still stand there and give that presentation.
100%. Yeah. So I'm just, this is so funny. Here we go. All right, now I got you. Great. And we've got 3 people coming online. There's a few people that are going to be here tonight. Not everyone could make it, obviously. And I'm not Abby.
They'll
People
figure
like
that
coming
out.
from Abby. I tell you that. They love hearing from Abby. I'm just kind of, I'm the side. I'm extra. I'm like mashed potatoes, you know. So I'm really looking forward to doing this. We will, for those of you who are just logging on, give us a minute. I'm setting up the slideshow. Stacy is getting ready. Tell us in the chat what you're having for dinner, which is usually how we start these things with. Because I don't eat and then I log on here and then I get hungry and then people tell me what they're eating and I just want to know. So if or just tell us, what you did today. I don't know. The school's back in session. My kids are in school. Take out, blush, leftover pork. Oh, take out, and then blush emoji. Yeah, I'm so jealous, Teresa. Oh, what'd you do for takeout? Indian. That's kind of my go-to, honestly, with takeout food. I just go for the Indian food. Italian. Okay. What do you like eating? This is like, I wish we had takeout Indian here. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Yep. We've got it West Valley. There's so many takeout places and around Arrowhead for Indian food. There's wraps and curry, which is really delicious. There's Indian Palace is also really good. They had a great buffet until it got shut down with COVID. Babo's. Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's like 2 minutes from me. Babo's is wonderful. That's a go-to for my kids. My kids will get the cheese pizza. I'll get the pesto pasta dish, and Abby will usually get, what does Abby get? She always changes it up. She's a foodie. Like she could run her own food truck, and that was pasta roast. Yeah, that's awesome. Pasta rustico is good. So good. It's great. It's great to have takeout now. It's great to have takeout now. It's great to go into some of these places and actually sit down and not. I'm always like conscious about the mask stuff. I'm like wearing mine. I'm like, take it off the table. And now a lot of places are just like, we trust you. We trust that you're vaccinated. I don't know how well this is working out with the cases and all that. I would totally work in Abby's food truck with her. I'm a yeah. That's a goal of ours, is to have some kind of a food truck, um,
God, totally.
and have it connected to the business somehow. Like you could get something to go with, like street tacos and an analysis or something. I don't know. And she said, don't tie it to paradigm, just keep it food. Okay. People have come for food, not financial advice. They can come to us here for that. And that's all yeah. So food truck stuff is fun, man. We got a friend who has a coffee truck locally. It's called Desert Bloom Coffee. You can go, they're on Instagram all the time and Facebook. And they're at like 59th Avenue in a Christian, I think they're at the Christian school on 59th Avenue, south of the 101. And Abby's worked that coffee cart with her friend Mariah. And she loves it. She has a blast. It's the speed of the orders and stuff. And that's what she does, when she's not doing investment advising, when she's not meeting with clients, she's helping people with their other small businesses getting going. So she's such an advocate for small businesses. It's really cool. She was yesterday, she was volunteering at Almost There Rescue, which is downtown, and we almost got a German Shepherd puppy from there, but she signed up on Saturday for volunteer training, and then Monday she took the day off and she was playing with a puppy, it was the moms. The moms get going. So the moms are anxious after they have their puppies, and the volunteers are there to treat them, how to just socialize them, to treat them, to teach them tricks, teach them how to sit, how to come, stay, be comfortable around humans again. Because oftentimes these mamas are found in the street with their puppies. And so Almost There Rescue, Google them. We support them. Wonderful organization. She didn't come here tonight to learn nonprofit stuff or small business things. You can check out our website for more of that stuff. We're talking about estate planning tonight. As always, silence your phones, close down the browser windows that are up and running all the time. They slow things down. I just shut mine all off. And that'll help you boost your speed. This is being recorded, but I will say that with Zoom, it's been crashy with me recently. So I would stick on for the whole time, and then we'll see how this thing does in terms of recording. So I'm honest with you. I'm not gonna, be here. If you're here, be here. Choose to be here. Let me get started with tonight's presentation here. We're going to open things up. I'm going to do that. Wonderful. Let me just put the video right here. I can still see you. So estate planning and you. Tonight, we're going to be talking about estate planning, and anything that we talk about here tonight with a forecast of illustrations or talking about past performances. I always have to talk about, look, it's hypothetical. I'm not giving you legal advice either. What we want to do is teach you the basics around estate planning. We're going to go over some of the pitfalls and things that you're going to need to know. But a lot of the stuff that Paradigm does with estate planning is top secret. It is proprietary. We do have a different way that we do things than your normal advisory firm that offers estate planning services. And we do it because we want to save money on your end, and then we also want to expedite this process so it's smooth and it's a done with you approach. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a friend in the business who was an estate planning attorney. He worked at one of those big firms downtown, and his firm was selling a lot of wills, and he got kicked out of his firm, 2 firms actually, for selling trusts instead of wills. And so he was baffled, because he got into this business like me to do the best interest in the client, right? Do the best interest for the client. Whatever he recommends, it's in your best interest. And so he was selling trusts instead of working the wills like the rest of the firm was, and he got kicked out. Went to his boss, asked him, why are you kicking me out? Why are we doing it this way? What's going on? I don't agree with it. And the boss explained it to him like this. He said, you know, when these estates go to probate, which is, okay, wrap your brain around that. When these estates go to probate, the kids who are in the probate process are looking at the will. And on the will, it has the name of the attorney and the firm that he works at and the phone number to call him. And so the kids, what happens is the kids think, oh, so mom and dad's attorney took care of them with this, maybe they'll take care of us. And so they end up calling the lawyer, the law firm, and the law firm now works the probate case. Now, why would they want to work a probate case? Here's the deal, is that probate, this is the villain of tonight. This is a bad thing. You do not want to go through probate. If you know someone who's gone through probate, I'm sorry, and you know that it's an arduous process. There's no time limit to probate, and the fees are 10% of the estate in probate. 10% of that is going to pay attorney fees, legal fees, the courts, all of that. And so for the law firm, it's making them big bucks. Well, my friend in the business couldn't handle that. He could not do that whatsoever. He knew, look, the trust is the better offer for the client to go with an estate plan with, not a will. Got to have a trust. It's the right thing. So what is happening with your estate plan? And so who signs for you when you're gone? You know, it's about passing that baton to a successor trustee. This is what really happens. So while you're alive, you're your own trustee over the assets that you own. And then when you're gone, a successor trustee must be assigned to sign on your behalf. And so the process of assigning a successor trustee can happen in one of two ways. It's either court appointed through probate process, or self-appointed in a trust. And so your entire life, you've been taught that you need a will. I was on a few webinars. I wanted to hear what all of my competitors say around here in the Valley. And they all talk about wills. And they say, if anything, you should get a will. I would argue don't. It's like, Stacy, how did you put it?
The only thing worse than dying without a will is dying with one.
Yeah.
Because it means you thought you were taking the steps necessary so that your family could avoid court, but no one really educated you about the backside of getting a will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like you're trying to eat well. but
then Abby pulls up with her taco truck.
And then Abby pulls up with her taco truck. You know, it's you're trying to do the right thing, but really the right thing is to go through the process to get a trust. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But a will, just so you know, it equals probate. Okay. A will tells the probate court what to do with your assets. And then the court appoints your successor trustees. And then your estate must pay for the process, reducing what your heirs get. And I'll get into that in a little bit. We'll get into the math of how that works and percentages. And if there's no will, probate court applies a state-based formula to distribute your assets. Okay. So, oh, I love this. This is what you just said. The only thing worse than dying without a will is dying with one, because it means you try to do the right thing, but no one told you what really happened. So probate can be problematic, obviously. Probate pays the court system to do something that you could honestly do yourself. Here's some of the problems that you're going to need to navigate when you go through probate. So your assets are frozen. Often the parents will leave money in the account thinking the family will be able to use it for the end of life expense. But today, our banks and mortuaries and funeral homes, they all talk to each other. It's all on a digital system. And so a friend with disabilities lived with his mom, for instance, and she died around 4 p.m. And the next morning, he went to the bank, and the account he was a signer on was already locked down. Yet 4 p.m. next morning, he goes to the bank. It's already frozen. It's already locked up. The next part of this is it's public exposure. So, my goodness, when I found this out, this is kind of crazy. All this is public record. The only thing that they took out recently is social security numbers. So when you go through probate processes, the court publishes all of the proceedings. And so what was happening was there was a lot of identity theft going on because the social security number is published. And so that's how people could pick up the social security numbers of dead people.
And
Not good.
the
Not a good
heirs, they
thing.
had to publish that too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so it's just it's not good. It's not good to go through that with public exposure. And then it invites contestability. So one of the reasons probate takes so long is the time required for the courts to publish notices to locate relatives and creditors. So again, there's no time limit to this thing. There's no, and who pays it? Well, it's coming out of your estate. That's how this is working. Well, let's get to the next slide because this is just skipped ahead. I love this analogy. This is how costly it gets. So think about this, is that the cost of probate is like having an extra child you didn't know you had to accommodate. So the court will get its fair share of your family's inheritance. It will, if it goes through probate. It's unfortunate. So will equals probate. Okay, here's what happens. 10% is going to go to court services with attorney fees, executor fees, accounting fees. 30% is taxes. That's your federal estate tax, state tax, and income tax. And what's all inside of this? Well, all your IRA accounts, your Roths, your brokerage accounts, your 401k, the cash in the bank, all the investment accounts I just mentioned, and then property. So your house is in this too. And then if you own a boat out here, which some of my friends do, it's a very costly process, and it's drawn out. The longer it goes, it's more profitable for the law firm that's working the probate case. Is there anything you want to add to this, Stacy?
Yeah, a lot of attorneys have told me that wills pay the bills.
Yeah.
And that's because the probate process is a leaky process. And I would say, these on these percentages, these aren't actually exact because there is no cap and no limit. So I tell people, if you are a planning person and you plan on going through probate, you need to plan for at least this much to leak out of your estate. And if you're an investor, like, Tom and Abby help us to manage those little slivers sometimes, and those growth points. Well, that hardly seems helpful if you're just gonna unplug the bathtub and let everything fall out of it. It's like, why did we spend all this time trying to get our investments so that they would pay off if we're just gonna break the dam? And so that's I tell people, if you're gonna plan on going to probate, then plan on numbers that look like this. But the fact is, there's no guarantee that it's not more.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So the only way out really is what? We got to get a trust. That's the only way out of this thing. And so there's a couple different trusts that you should know about, and I've included them in tonight's presentation. One is a revocable living trust, which is allowing you to change your mind while you're alive all the time. And a trust is a contract that springs into action when you die. So you determine ahead of time who will be in charge of following your directives. You list the assets the trust will be controlling, and then you determine who gets what at what points in time. There's no court interference at all. There's no leaking. Some estates incur some fees to liquidate assets, but these are nominal. And those assets that you had control of while you were alive will now be protected as they pass to your heirs. You think about it as, it was so funny. The first workshop I ever did was 12 years old. And I sent an email out the other day about this. I was 12 and I was with my dad's firm. And he was at a restaurant. He was giving this workshop presentation. He had me go up into the front of the room and tell them exactly what a trust was and what it did. And I gave that exact same example, that it's a lockbox. It's simply a lockbox, and you put things inside of it. And I listed my skateboard, my Legos, and it's things that like a kid would think of to put in the lockbox. And then you tell people like what, obviously you're not putting Legos in here, you're putting your house, put things that matter into a trust. Yeah, and really the end point of that is it's simple, it's not complicated. A lot of people, I think, avoid this, and people we've worked with, right, Stacy, have avoided this conversation because it seems complicated. It seems like it's going to cost me a lot of money, Tom, to do this. And you're going to find out that it's really not. It's not that complicated at all. One of the extra things that I wanted to put in here tonight, and it's from my phone calls with some of our current clients and people who have attended our webinar with these questions around real estate. And so one of the things that Stacy and I were talking about this afternoon was that you should be looking at a Medicaid asset protection trust. And so what this basically does is that you can take your house that you have right now and you can put it inside of this trust. And so it's protected from probate, creditors, thieves, people who want to get at your house, and most importantly, LTC, long-term care costs. The average long-term care health insurance costs throughout your retirement, it's 30 years, it's about $250,000 that you'll pay in healthcare coverage and drug expenses. And when it gets to long-term care costs, the average monthly was like $15,000 I saw in some case studies in my research. And so when you look at retirement and you're looking to get your estate plan together, you have to have a plan to cover long-term care costs, and trust can help you do this. If you don't, here's what'll happen is that you could go to the hospital because of a stroke. This is what happened to one of Stacy's clients, was that the mom went to the hospital. She had a stroke and it sent her to the hospital. She was in critical care. And what the hospital does was that she ran out of money, and then the hospital put a lien to get money out of her house. So all this time she was in there, it was spending down the value in her home, which is insane. And so what people try to do is they try to sell their house before this happens. They sell it like in a 5-year time span, but they can still look back and see if you sold your house and try to claw it back with a lien. So what you want to do is you want to use a Medicaid asset protection trust to put your real estate in. And this is great because you also mentioned, Stacy, that the daughter of this mom saw this happen and came and worked with you and said, hey, I want to use that Medicaid asset protection trust that you talked about in the workshop. I have a home. I don't want this to happen. I would rather it be protected from all these things. And so they sold their house. You can sell your house in the trust, which is great. And then the funds from the sale go and stay in the trust. It never leaves. And so what they did was they already had property picked out in Montana where they were going to retire to in about 5 years. And they used the proceeds in the trust to pay for their new house in Montana. So that's, if you want to protect your real estate, this is one of those options for you. Stacy, is there anything else I should be adding here?
No, just that it's a quick and easy maneuver. And if you went to an attorney and you asked for one of these trusts, they'll ask you how much your house is worth. And then based on that, they'll give you an arbitrary number about how much that type of a trust is going to cost. And because they're like, oh, you're trying to protect a house that's worth that much. Let's see. I think it's going to cost you this much.
Yeah.
Whereas the system that Tom's going to show you about is just a nominal flat one-time fee, no big deal, no hassle.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you ever anticipate a Medicaid spend down, this will protect the house so that they don't have the house, and yet you still have all the privileges of buying and selling within that trust. So yeah, it's amazing.
So honestly, the conclusion is you need a trust. That is the solution. You obviously need to have a trust instead of just a will. And so here are some of the differences between trust and probate, which we talked about, is that the court makes all the decisions when it goes to probate. But if you have a trust, you get to make the decisions. You get to decide on who gets what, how much do they get, and when do they get it. It's an immediate process. It's not drawn out. It happens quickly, and it's private. It's not public. All that information is not disclosed to the public. And then, is it costly on probate? Yes, obviously it's super costly to do this. But a trust, you would also think is costly. But when we just compare it back to what we've seen from 10% in legal fees and 30% in taxes, and not to mention if you're in some of this estate could be spent down if you have long-term care costs, getting the trust now is obviously the better option. And so what we do is so different than a lot of other firms out there. You'll work with a firm, an advisory firm talking about estate planning. I've seen tons of ads on Facebook on this already. And the difference between our firm and other people's firms is we are not sending you off to an attorney right away to get this done. That's not how we do things at all. And so what we do is we work with Stacy, who uses integrated trust systems, which has been around since 1985, to help smooth this process along and get this quickly funded, and so that you're saving money, and you're saving money on all the legal fees, right, Stacy? They're saving all the money on the front end legal fees that happens when you start working with an attorney first, before you have all the right documents filled out, your medical directives, the distribution plan set up for your heirs. All of that can be done in integrated trust systems. And we work as a team to get this done.
So Tom, if you'll just jump back for a second, I want to jump in here real quick. So what they did that I think was so brilliant is, because they've been the back office for estate planning attorneys for 35 years, what always used to happen in the traditional model is the attorney would go to integrated trust systems to create and pull the trust documents. And they were doing that at a wholesale price. And then they would mark it up to whatever they needed to keep their bills paid and their lights on, and to have that nice lifestyle that they like. And so then they would mark it up to what they needed and then pass it on to the end user. So changes to the trust code happened a few years ago, and integrated trust systems jumped on it, and they took advantage of that. And what, Tom, you were talking about is that uniform trust code was created, and that's what smoothed out the playing field from state to state. And the uniform trust code then was adopted in whole or in part by all 50 states. So one of the things that allowed integrated trust systems to do was to remove the attorney as the gatekeeper. And they took them from the front door and they embedded them in the process. So they're still there, but they can't dictate the price anymore.
Yeah.
And so you and I can get the same exact fully customizable trust that anyone could get from a fancy attorney at a near wholesale price.
Yeah.
And we can come in through the front door and then have a series of appointments with a legal team, which can't charge us anything extra. It's all included in a one-time fee. And so the benefits are just outrageously good.
Yeah. Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's different. Exactly what I told you. It's absolutely different.
The other thing that I'm going to point out here, Tom, is that a lot of people, when they start talking about trust, they obviously are going to think about them in the old way that they were created and delivered. So the old way of doing things, the traditional way of doing things, has been you would go to an attorney, they would get your trust documents created, and then they would tell you to fund your trust. You always had to do this yourself, and you would never want to pay them to help you because of how long it would take.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go to the recorder's office and you at the courthouse, and you'd have to re-deed the house into the name of the trust. And then you go to the bank and you'd have all your checks reflect the Miller Family Trust. And then you would go to the DMV and stand in line and have all your titles changed out. This is actually, quite frankly, why a lot of people didn't want to get a trust. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing all that.
Yeah.
And because they had to do it for themselves, it usually didn't get done, or it didn't get done right. And so that was a problem. Well, the Uniform Trust Code says, you know what? It doesn't make sense for all this retitling, because while you're alive, you're in charge of your own assets. You can buy, sell, trade, and transfer those with your own signature. So there's no sense to retitle it in the name of the trust. So the only time that retitling takes place now is at the end, when your estate needs to be settled and you're not there to sign. That's when it's retitled over to the person who's going to sign on your behalf. And so the Uniform Trust Code says, in order to fund a trust, which means to assign the assets to the control of the trust, all you have to do is list them on a ledger, render them to a ledger, and you're golden. And it's like, are you kidding? It is so fast and so easy. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It truly is a wonderful process that we have in place for people to get this done and get it done in an efficient, done with you approach, rather than it's all done for you. And then you're constantly scheduling times with the attorney to get the next thing. And, oh, we forgot this. You know, things drag out. Unfortunately, they always do. And so when you work with Paradigm, just real quick about who we are, you know, you're going to work with us, and we have a team of people that we've put together that are going to help you get this stuff done and get it done right. So you've got me, myself, I'm the retirement income planning specialist. You have my wife, Abby, who is the founder of the firm, founding president of the firm. This is her firm. It's a registered investment advisory firm, and we work for our clients, not for companies. It's a big difference. It's a huge difference in this business. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And I noticed that Dave Vick signed on tonight. So, hey, Dave, I see you out there. You're up here too. I consider you a part of the team. But then we have our chief investment officer in the far right-hand corner, Joe Moss. He has every designation after his name. He is a precision active money manager, an expert in the field of active money management. And then with some of his associates, we have our CPA, Aaron Berry, at Simply Taxes. So if you don't have a CPA, you can work with ours. She's fantastic. And then Stacy, who is with me tonight, who is our specialist with trust and using the integrated trust system. A little bit about me. So I got in the business in 2013, and it's been family business always with me. I grew up in the business. I got into this. I sat at the dinner table for many years as a kid, and working in the office with my dad and mom in Chicago, running a financial planning practice. I always told them, you know, I'd never do this. I'm never going to get in this business. I wanted to be a writer. So I got a professional writing degree out of college, and I didn't want anything to do with money. And then I started writing for financial blogs. I started getting the itch, and I called my dad up and I said, hey, I'd love to get in the business. And he said, if we're going to do this, it's always going to be people first, money second. That was his mantra: people first, money second. And so that's the whole point of why I even started to practice with my wife. I'm also a published author and co-writer. Here's why I'm in the business, okay? So like the friend that I talked about in the beginning of this, I was working at a marketing firm for financial advisors as a business coach. And we were building plans for people. And we had a couple rules change, and we had these rules change, and it affected the way that we recommended products. And I started seeing people, I fought against this rule for a long time, of charging more for individual products and getting paid more on individual products, much like that trust and will story. And we were working with financial advisors across the country. And I just wouldn't do it. I always recommended and built income plans for my financial advisors. that were in the client's best interest, that use the products and services and features and benefits that made the most sense to them, regardless of how we got paid on it. And it got to the point where they were pushing me, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I want to be in the field and I want to help you directly. I can help so many advisors across the country, but were they doing what I asked them to do? No. It was so frustrating. And so that best interest, it really drives my personality. It really drives who I am. And this is exactly who I was in this picture, hearing story after story going, why are you recommending this? This is not right. And that's why we have Paradigm Money Management today. That's my reason for being in practice. Other than I love it, it's in my blood. I love doing what I do. And Stacy, I want you to share your story a little bit here of how you got into this and how you got started. And then I think you have another story you want to tell us too.
I'm not sure which one. Do you have anything in here about special needs coming up?
It's towards the end of this. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all towards the end. You have
Yeah.
your Jed and Ellie Mae illustration that
Oh
you
my
always
goodness,
give.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, okay. So this is there you go. All right, we're gonna leave it right here. So this is where I'm gonna tell you a corny joke. You don't have to laugh. It may not even be funny. And so especially when I can't see you and hear you. I won't even know if you're not laughing. So, but if you are, you can laugh in the chat and ingratiate both of us. So some of you probably don't remember growing up, coming home from school and watching a story about a man named Jed. And if you do, you can let us know in the chat. So Jed had this beautiful daughter, Ellie Mae. He was so afraid she was not going to get hitched before he passed away. So he decided to give her a little bit of a nudge. And what he did was he invited all of the area's eligible bachelors out to a dinner party on the estate. And and so Dave knows this one.
Yeah.
And so after he had wined and dined them for a while, he invited them out to the pool. And he says, fellas, he says, I've got a little contest for you. But it wasn't just any ordinary pool. This pool had alligators in it. And he says, now the first one to jump in this pool and swim across to me, he says, you are going to have your choice of $1 million or a piece of my estate, or you can have Ellie Mae's hand in marriage. And he had no more got that out of his mouth, and splat, somebody was in the pool swimming like an Olympian and actually made it out alive onto the other side. And when he did, Jed was so excited. He's like, oh my gosh, best day of my life. He's like, son, he says, do you want the $1 million? He's like, no, man, I don't want the $1 million. And he's like, oh, do you want the acreage? And he says, no, I don't want the estate. And he says, oh my gosh, you must want Ellie Mae's hand in marriage. And he says, no, man. He says, I don't want Ellie Mae's hand in marriage. I just want to know the name of the guy who pushed me in the pool. And so the corny joke, I told you it'd be corny, but it kind of sets up the rest of what we're going to be talking about here tonight. Mm-hmm. These are all scenarios where somebody got pushed in the pool, and you're going to find yourself in some of these stories. And also, thank you for laughing. Thank you. And so all these stories have taken place with they're real life stories. They've taken place with advisors that I've worked with, or some of them as even my own clients. Some of these you Tom, I almost called you Abby, but that's because it says Abby.
It says Abby. Yeah, I know. No.
If I call you Abby, that's why. And so anyway, so these are real stories, and you probably will pick up on some of these having happened to people that you know. I'm not going to linger on these. So Tom, you've got control. So I'm just going to have you kind of like start whipping through.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that for sure. And so I want to say one thing real quick. Normally this comes with a participation sheet. What we want you to do is, if this pertains to you, write this down. We're going to talk about a lot of pitfalls in this estate planning process. And so what you want to do is you want to write down stuff that is important. Like, do you have a medical directive? Do you have a distribution plan set up? Do you have a Medicaid asset protection trust? Is that a concern to you? Write down your concerns. It's so important so that when you sign up for a strategy session with us, you can get these things taken care of, and we can focus on what parts of the system will we be working in with you. So, and if you learn, honestly, if you learn two things tonight that are brand new to you about this process, then I think that earns us at least an hour of your time to go through this. So if you do me a favor, if you learn two things, please book a strategy session, as we'd love to help you with this process. So I will find the link and then send it in the chat. But Stacy, go ahead and take it away. Here's our next slide.
So seriously, do take out a piece of paper and take some notes. And so the first one is advanced medical directives and medical power of attorney. If you do not have an advanced directive, please make a note, and we want to make sure that you get that in place. So there's been a lot of things, we've all been touched by COVID, but if you end up in the hospital because you can't breathe and you're sick enough to be there, it is way too late for you to backtrack and say, oh, wait a minute, I got to get this done. And I rarely have anybody not make a meeting with me. If they make an appointment with me, they usually keep their appointment. But I will tell you, the only reason in the last 3 or 4 months that anyone has ever broken an appointment with me is because they were in the hospital or they got suddenly ill. So that's being pushed in the pool. And you do not want to end up without this taken care of. Okay. So let's advance that one, Tom.
Yep, you got it.
This is another obviously no brainer. Nobody gets in a car and plans on having a car wreck before they get home. Definitely pushed in the pool. You've got to have your medical directives in place so that if something like that happens that you weren't planning on, you're covered. Okay. All right, this is the most vulnerable category of people without medical directives, and that is an adult single. So a colleague of mine, he mostly works with younger families who are, he's helping them with their finances to get their kids through college. And he says, Stacy, I cannot tell you how many times I have a parent who gets called by the hospital nearest campus, and they're like, hey, mom or dad, we've got your son or daughter here. They're unconscious. You need to come. And then they travel all night to get there, whether by car or by plane. They arrive at the hospital only for the doctor to say, and of course, parents are hysterical. And they're like, okay, what's going on with my son? Why is he unconscious? What's wrong with him? And they can't tell them anything because HIPAA laws protect their privacy. And they're like, wait a minute, wait. Okay, so this is my kid. I'm paying his college tuition. I'm paying his health insurance premiums. You called me to get here, and now you won't tell me what his prognosis is and what's wrong with him. And this just happened with my own brother. Of course, I've been chirping at him for a while about what he needs to do, but your siblings are never going to listen to you. And his son's 34 years old. Got one of those fancy, crazy one-wheel skateboard things for Christmas. And he takes it out on his maiden voyage and breaks his pelvis. So they put my nephew in the hospital. And then because my brother did not have medical power of attorney, they will not tell my brother what they're going to do. So he eventually finds out they're going to have to do surgery in a day or so. So after surgery, and his surgery went from his knee all the way through his pelvis, so it's major. My brother's trying to find out, is he out of surgery? How did he do? How's he doing? What do we do? What do we do? Oh, and by the way, they wouldn't let my brother near him because they said he tested positive for COVID. My brother had an argument with the doctor. He says, last I knew, you don't get COVID from busting your pelvis. And the doctor's like, we know that we get false positives, but we have to follow the protocol. Sorry, you can't be in here. So my brother gets a hold of his son on his cell phone one day, and he's trying to talk to him. He's totally not coherent. Thankfully, he's, got enough meds that he's not in pain. And so then my brother calls the nurses station. I'm sure they were happy for this whole scenario to go away once this resolved. And they're like, sir, your son is an adult. He's awake and he's perfectly capable of directing his own care. And my brother just went ballistic. He says he doesn't even know who I am. He doesn't even know I'm his dad. And how can he direct his own care? Okay, so my brother stormed up there and checked his son out and put him in a private facility. I mean, this is what happens, right?
Yeah.
And so most people don't realize that the best birthday present you can give an 18-year-old is a medical directive with somebody with medical power of attorney. Now, see, if you're married, you don't really have that problem. But if you're single because you never married, single because of divorce, single because you didn't think about it, you're in trouble. So this next one has to do with incapacitation. So my parents in their late 70s, early 80s, and they have friends their ages. And one of the gals friends of theirs, went to Walmart. And about 3 hours later, Walmart calls her husband and says, hey, is this your wife? And he's like, yeah, is she okay? She's okay, but she doesn't know who she is, doesn't know where she's at, can't find her car, doesn't know how to get home. You need to come pick her up. So what do? They call me and they're like, oh, we need medical power of attorney. We need all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole, because once you have been told by a doctor that you have lost capacity to make decisions on your own, you can't give somebody else authority to do that. At that point, it's too late. So that's a real problem. And this happened to a set of clients of mine. So what happened is the bread earning spouse owned an IRA, and their plan was always, if we need to tap into this money, that's what it's there for. So that was kind of their nest egg. Okay, problem was the bread earner, when that person went down, didn't die, just lost capacity. And the first letter in IRA is individual retirement account. I'm telling you, there is no attorney in the land who's going to get a vendor to bust open an IRA just because you're desperate for the cash. It's not going to happen without the right tools in place. So you have got to get this nailed down. And I will say, if you are here tonight without it, you need to make that note. Here's how we solve the problem. This is just a look on the inside. So the trust that we're talking about is tech assisted, and this is how we use technology to help build the documents. So you can see a few of the questions here. Do you want resuscitated or not? And then you can qualify your answers and build in qualifications and things. Do you want treated for pain? Yes, but balance that with how long it takes for my family to get here, because they're globetrotters, and don't put me on so much morphine that I only have 3 days before my kidneys, punch out. And so, so then over on the right-hand side, you see the healthcare agents, and that is special language for person you're giving power of attorney to. And you notice that in the red, if this person is married, it's going to list their spouse, and then followed by the people that are listed down below as the contingent healthcare agents. Now, the greatest thing that you get with integrated trust systems is that wallet card in the upper right-hand corner. So there's a whole industry now being built around these wallet cards. It's portable, medical records and things like that. And so you will get this card. You can snapshot it and text it to your kids. I did this with my daughters, and I'm like, hey, I know you don't want to carry around 8 pages of my morbidity. And, you know, I was before COVID, I was on a plane every week, and they didn't want to get a phone call where they had to dig up some paperwork. So I'm like, if anything happens, you have power of attorney. This card right here, if paramedics scoop you up off the floor at Walmart and you're not conscious, they're going to check your body for a medical alert tag that you may or may not be wearing. Then they're going to go and try to find out who you are, and they're going to go for the wallet, and they can find this card. I print them on neon cardstock and laminate them for my clients. And it will give the hospital the information on how to access your medical directives.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so the next scenario we're going to talk about is common beneficiary mistakes. And yes, thank you for that comment. So a beneficiary is somebody who, if you're out of the picture, who gets a check written to them. Okay, and so here's some things. This happened to one of my advisors out of St. Louis, Missouri. So on the right-hand side, we have dad, and he has named his son on the left as the beneficiary on his retirement account. Okay, so dad, if you click the button there, Tom, dad passes away in a car accident and he dies. So that means under normal circumstances, the son would get a check. Problem is, if you press the button again, Tom, the son was in the same car accident that took the dad out.
I can't believe this story.
And in that particular case, there was not a contingent beneficiary, only one beneficiary.
Yeah.
So now this is the daughter-in-law and the granddaughter here that would have benefited by that account. The problem is now this woman had to go to court to fight for her right to an asset when she is not a blood relative to the guy that owned the account. Yeah. So guess what? She had to fight all the blood relatives for anything that she was going to get out of that. It's so easy to fix the problem. Okay, so here is a huge one. And if this is going on with you, you write it down,
Yeah, mark it down if this is going on.
Joint tenancy. Okay, so joint tenancy is where you have someone, usually a family member, sometimes a kid, and you have put their name on your house deed or on your bank account. Now, I got to tell you, this is so common because back in the day when we all lived in Mayberry and when Aunt B made cherry pie for Sunday dinner, okay, everybody did this. My grandma did this with my mom. It's like, hey, sis, I'm putting your name on the house. If anything happens to me, it's yours. It's just going to slide right over. I put you on the bank account. So if anything happens, you've got access to the money for my end of life. Okay. Well, it doesn't happen that way anymore because we don't live in Mayberry and we live in a very litigious society with lots of rules and lots of computers running our lives today. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's advance that. And so this happened to, I'm sorry, go back, Tom. I'm sorry. So the guy that you were talking about earlier, who is handicapped, and he lived with his mom and dad his whole life. Okay. And his dad had passed. He lives with his mom. He's on her bank account. I mean, it made sense. And she says, okay, whatever you need, it's in there. She dies at 4 p.m. He goes in the morning to get the money out, already frozen out. And he's like, but I'm a signer on the account. That is technically a form of power of attorney, and power of attorney dies when you die. Nobody tells you that. Mm-mm. Okay. And so you cannot count on those assets just flowing to somebody else who's on that account. Okay, now we'll advance.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a true story that has happened over and over and over again. But to this particular, I have an advisor who this happened to a couple that were his clients. So on the left, we have mom and dad. They put their daughter on their house deed. Okay. And it's like, if anything happens, you get the house. Great. Until click the button, her hubby decides to divorce her. And in the divorce discovery, the attorney realizes that she is a signer, or her name is on the deed of the house. And in their state, the son, the divorcing couple, he can get 50% of all of her assets. Well, it's not like this is her mom and dad's house alone. If her name's on the deed, she is truly and indeed an owner. And so because the discovery process discovered that she was an owner of that house, the divorcing spouse got 50% of her mom and dad's house. Now, because this was a house that they wanted to live in for the rest of their life, they didn't want to have to sell it to give him anything. So they had to take out a second mortgage on their house so that he could split. Now, that's a torment that most people don't want to live through, because now your daughter is raising your granddaughter by herself, and the equity in your home just marched away with the guy who left.
It's crazy.
So not a good feeling, not a good feeling.
Not a good feeling.
Another thing that happens with joint tenancy is lawsuits. You don't even have to do anything wrong to get sued with a lawsuit today.
Mhm.
And if they discover that you are a signer on somebody's account, they can reach all the way in and strip that asset. Okay. All right, Tom.
Yep.
And bankruptcy. Now, we saw a lot of bankruptcies in 2008. And how many do you think we're going to see because of COVID? So this is not something that people think about when they have their kids on their accounts. So you've got your daughter on your account. Your daughter owned a tea shop, like a little, coffee and tea shop that was
Mhm.
closed down during COVID. She has to file bankruptcy. Guess what? They can reach all the way into every account she's on with you and strip you clean. So write it down if this is happening to you. And then if here's how we solve the problem. We have, remember I talked about the Uniform Trust Code, that all we have to do is render to a ledger those items that the trust is going to control when you're gone. And so here we have 12 different signature held account categories. And this happens to be looking at bank accounts and houses. So on the left-hand side, you merely just list your bank accounts and the account numbers and who owns them. And on the right-hand side, this is how we fund your house to the trust. We don't even have to retitle it, change the deed anymore. Just put the address in there, and then we can upload a copy of the deed to your portal, and voila, it'll be there when it needs to be there. So it's that simple. Okay. All right. If you own an IRA, mark it down.
Yep.
This is what happens that people don't realize about IRAs. Just had this conversation with somebody this afternoon.
Mm.
So you've got a parent who has a large IRA, and in this case, she's listed her daughter as the beneficiary. Okay. Now, most of the time, if there's no distribution plan that's offered when you get this account, then they will call the beneficiary that you listed and say, hey, do you want a lump sum or do you want it to trickle out? You know what most of the time they say? Yeah, I want it all. You know why? Mom didn't make it till tomorrow. What makes me think I'm going to make it till tomorrow? And I got problems today. And that $200,000 can solve a lot of problems. So just bring it on. Okay, so now let's roll this and show you what happens with a large payout to a beneficiary. Okay, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
All right, in this scenario, mom's gone. she's got a $200,000 IRA account. Now, when that goes to her daughter in the lump sum, it has to be declared as straight income. And so that check is going to arrive with a little form that you give to your accountant on tax day and declare that. And if it's big enough, and most of them are, it will raise the recipient's income status to a higher tax bracket, usually the highest tax bracket.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at like 35-36% taxation at that bracket. And so go back one here.
Okay.
And so when that happens, the IRS is going to get 70 grand for that payout. Now I ask you, how long would your mom have had to have worked to accumulate 70 grand that you're just going to hand out to the IRS? So when we sit down with our clients, this is one of the things that we're looking at is how much is in that IRA? Is it going to end up mostly going over to the IRS? Let's do some creative planning here. We're not playing the shell game. We're just doing the right kind of planning so that it doesn't land all at once. So now she could lose 70 grand. Now, if the 130 that's left, she gets a divorce, maybe that's a handy time for someone to decide to hand her a divorce paper. She can lose half of it. But if she's subject to, go ahead and advance that one, if she's subject to creditors and predators, she can lose all of it to bankruptcy or to a lawsuit. And the next slide, what a lot of people don't realize, it kind of like sneaked in there with nobody paying any attention. But now since 2014, an inherited IRA is not protected from bankruptcy. So I, from time to time, have clients who have an inherited IRA sitting in their account, and I'll see that in there. And I'm like, so what's that? Well, that's mom's IRA. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, we got to be careful here because you could end up losing that. So there's better ways that we can secure those things. And here's how we do it. This happens to be how we list your IRAs. And it also asks another question underneath each section. And that is, do you want the trust to be the primary beneficiary, or do you want it to be secondary to somebody else? This is the beauty of a trust and a distribution plan. Most people don't realize you don't have to just have a big old check sent to somebody. You got someone who's not financially astute, maybe not yet, maybe they're young, maybe they're financially immature still, maybe they're a spendthrift risk. Maybe their marriage is a little shaky and it's not determined yet if they're going to make it. And so there's all these reasons why there's an advantage to keeping some things held in trust and divvied out a little bit at a time so that it helps them, it elevates their lifestyle, but it's not going to be all subject, because only what they've received is what's at risk. Everything that's not received yet is not at risk. And so there's protection there. So you can actually have a distribution plan per item, or you can have them aggregated together and then distributed the way that you want. So you have complete control over distribution. Okay. All right. Underage children and those with disabilities. So if you have someone in your family with challenges, disabilities, or special needs, please write that on your sheet. That is, that's the area that actually brought me into estate planning. So we can go forward, Tom, and I'll probably just have you, I'll just tell you when to advance these. So this is me. I don't see myself as, like a salesperson or anything. I see myself as an advocate, because all I've done most of my life is fight battles for the special needs community, especially people without a voice. And that's me at the UN speaking. I've been there a couple times. That is not an ugly earring. That's actually my translation device. And so I was there making some political enemies. And so you can go ahead and advance that, Tom.
Mhm.
This is what got me in to estate planning. This is my brother, Sean. And Sean believes that everyone who knocks on the front door is delivering a Happy Meal. And he once met Ronald McDonald for real and has the poster, the life-size poster in his bedroom to prove it. And it's amazing how Ronald McDonald always knows that Sean wants a Happy Meal in that box. I mean, he wants a Hot Wheel in that Happy Meal. So we have Hot Wheels hidden everywhere. They're in the outside flower box. They're in our cars. You know, we have them stashed everywhere because the Happy Meal better arrive with a Hot Wheel in it. So one day I had traveled 11 hours cross country to help my family out after mom had had a major surgery. So she's doped up on drugs. She doesn't know her name. And all of a sudden, I'm watching an ambulance take my dad away.
Yeah.
And as I look over at my brother, Sean, my blood runs cold when I realize I don't have a copy of the medicine safe. I don't know where the combination to the medicine safe is. And I don't know what I can feed him. Mom was trying to diagnose the difference between an allergy and a sensitivity with corn. And you better know the difference because there's a big difference between a food allergy and a sensitivity. It means a trip to the hospital in most cases. And those of you out there who have a family member in this category who is fragile, you know the panic that is. So having advocated for these families for years, I knew I wasn't alone and I needed to solve the problem. So I created a special needs trust that's tech assisted on the integrated trust systems platform.
Nice.
And it has a caregiver's guide. So moms can literally just, keep track of all the things that are going on in their kids' lives. And if something happens to that mom, then there is a roadmap that somebody else can step in and use. And so now you can advance that. So that's really how I got involved. It's why I'm so passionate. And this is every mom of a special needs kid. I've asked them, what's your plan if for them, if something happens to you? And it's amazing. They all say, oh, there's no plan. I just have to live forever.
Yeah.
And when I saw this picture one day, I had to have it in my presentation because this is a ruin site. This is an archaeological ruin site. Everything around this is crumbled to the ground, except for these moms who are still there carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's my mom. My mom's a saint because they're still in their 70s and 80s taking care of my brother. And so I've now moved in with them to help. And I tell people we're just one tent short of a full-blown circus around here most of the time.
Yeah.
And so but I needed peace of mind. My mom needed peace of mind. And so the Universal Guardian Trust will give that. Okay. So in chat, is there anybody here tonight that's in this boat with a special needs or fragile family member? Anybody in chat? So let me know if that's the case. All right. So then I'm just going to kind of move through this kind of quickly for the sake of referring somebody if you know that person
That's
somewhere.
a smart move. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just part of the caregiver's guide, how we've broken it down and made it simple for a mom to capture that information and change it because it's ever changing. And so you can fast forward through here. And yeah, every child deserves the benefit of all the things only mom knew. And so now I have that information that I needed for my brother. Also, if you had a kid on SSI government benefits, only a special needs trust will keep their benefits coming while they receive the benefits of an inheritance. Without a special needs trust, when the inheritance comes down the pike, they lose their SSI almost every time. So it's devastating. Okay. And you can have a wallet card that you send to school with them. All these kids are medicated, they're all at school and they're growing, their medications need constantly tweaked all the time. They have an episode, the school has no choice but to call an ambulance. The first responders now are picking up kids without a parent and hauling them to the hospital. Emergency room staff and hospital administrations are dealing with this crisis because for the first time ever, they have an epidemic of kids being shipped to the hospital without the parent on board. The parents get a phone call at work and then they meet up. So that caregiver's card can be handed to the paramedics so they know what they're dealing with at least up front until mom and dad show up.
Yeah.
So the problem here is probate guardianship. Without the right legal tools, the court will step in. And I will tell you, it is not enough today. And this goes for all of you who have minors. I don't care if they're typically developing or not. But if you have minor children in your family structures, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, okay, if something happens to their parent caregivers who have legal guardianship over them, it is not enough today to say, well, my sister will take care of my kids. My sister's the godmother of my kids. Her and her husband, they'll step in. Oh no, the court is going to have to vet them first. And when the court vets them during that time, the probate guardianship has your kids. So right here locally, a family that I know and worked with, the parents are taken out of the situation. The state goes to kindergarten and literally lifts the 5-year-old from kindergarten. And then another car pulls up to the house where the sister to the mom has stepped into the role of caregiver, and she answers the door with a baby on her hip. And I'm telling you, they extracted that baby from its aunt, and now everybody's crying, everybody's hysterical because you or I would say not over my dead body, and that's kind of the way the fight went. And so they end up with the baby, and so the aunt is screaming, at least take his binky, at least give him his binky to soothe him. And they left that house without a blankie, a binky, or a bottle. Now that's probate guardianship. So my mission is to have as many people not go through probate as possible. And grandparents, if you are a grandparent and you're in charge of your grandkids, mark it down. This is an epidemic today, mostly driven by the opioid crisis. But most grandparents only have a will, and they don't realize that if they only pass away with a will, those kids are going right back into the system that they have put their lives on hold to prevent. So it's not enough. You need a trust. Okay, so now I'm starting to preach, so you'll have to
I'm gonna keep going because we're short on time here.
Yeah, and we can just go to the last slide here.
Okay.
So this is our last slide.
Yeah.
Your first retirement asset isn't your retirement account or your savings account. It's your trust.
Yeah.
And then from there, let the trust protect and direct. And that's what you need to know. Mm-hmm. So that's why we want you guys to have this information, because, you know, when I got pushed in the pool, I took steps to do something about it. And because of that, many families are saved and rescued today from the perils of probate. And you came tonight because something's been eating away at you. You're wanting information. You're wondering about this. You've had a curiosity about it. And now you have this information. So you want to make sure that you don't let time pass and not act on it, because something brought you here tonight. I early in my career, I was speaking a workshop just like this, and a guy and his son, his adult son, had come, and the guy made an appointment the next day to talk about if a trust was right for him. And he brought his granddaughter in with him. I remember I was sneaking her candy. She was a little 13-year-old cutie pie. And he says, I've been looking at this for a while. I'm going to do this, but we're out on a granddaughter date and I don't want to do this today, but I'm going to come back. So that was a Friday. On Monday, his son called the office and he says, please, please, please tell me my dad got a trust. I know he made an appointment. And we're like, no, he didn't. He was going to, but he hasn't yet. And he says, oh my gosh. He said, he went riding his Harley this weekend and somebody broadsided him in the intersection and he didn't make it. Now his son is grieving the loss of his father, but he's now having to balance anger, which you don't want to feel when you're grieving, and he's got these two emotions at play. And he says, oh my gosh, my dad has money tucked everywhere in this town, and he named me as the executor of his will, which means I'm the court's gopher, and I'm going to lose 3 years of my life trying to find everything that my dad had poked around, if I can even find it, to file the claims on it. And he says, I'm going to just lose my life to this. So I'm not saying you're going to get hit in an intersection this weekend. What I am saying is you are not going to live forever.
Right.
Like moms who plan, I'm going to live forever. Good luck with that. And someday your family's counting on you being able to do something for them. This is the gift you give your family. And so have an appointment, get your questions answered. We're not scary. And we would absolutely love, yes, if you have an old trust, we're happy to review it for you.
Yeah.
So we'll get all of your questions answered. So yeah, thank you for coming tonight, Tom.
Yeah, it's been awesome and very educational, I'm sure, for a lot of people who are on the phone call. And I would say that, yeah, it's your first retirement asset. You need clarity around this. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions tonight that you've got, and you just need to have clarity around this. And honestly, again, if we've taught you two things tonight, you've got to schedule some time with us. We can do a review on your trust, and Stacy and I will work together on this to help you start this part of the process, is getting a trust. And then the next step we alluded to inside this presentation is a tax analysis. That's the other thing that you're going to get when you go through this process, is a tax analysis. And clearly that's very important if you have IRA accounts and you know that taxes are going to go up in the future. And so why not get a second opinion on how you can get that done? And unlike your CPA that you might talk to about taxes for this year, what we do at Paradigm is we look at taxes, your whole tax story, for 20 years, 30 years down the road in retirement, so that you're not getting hit with these giant tax time bombs as you peel off into your IRA and start using that for funding some of your retirement needs. But obviously you've got to get a trust. You got to get that signed up. So sign up for a strategy session. We just posted that link. I'm going to post it again. How should you update your powers of attorney?
You really don't need to update them if major things haven't changed. The beauty of having your medical power of attorney with us, by the way, those are all thrown in for free, is that as often as you want to change something, it's as fast as changing an email. So I change mine all the time based on where I'm traveling and which kid I'm closest to.
That's true. We had one question I'll get to. Is a trust the same thing as a Medicaid asset trust? If I'm on Medicare, do I still put my house in a MAT? That was one of the questions.
So those are things that we should talk about one-on-one, because in order to answer that question, we have to ask like 4. And so I would defer that one to your Q&A session.
Okay. Yeah, that makes the most sense.
Because they're different, and they're different tools, and they're only appropriate to be used at certain times and points. So we'd want to make sure we ferret that out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, we've taken 10 more minutes than we should have, but I'm so glad that we did, because I think we covered a lot of things that people needed to hear about estate planning. Yeah, you came here. It wasn't your average estate planning webinar, I'll tell you that. But yeah, we would love to see you. Feel free to book a strategy session. Again, if you have specific questions, that's the best place to get that answered, so we can take the time to get to know you. Hey, we're not going to tell you to buy a trust. What we are going to say is that we're going to give you a second opinion about how things are going with your trust, if you have one. And if you don't, we'll look at your financial situation and see, hey, is a trust feasible? Maybe there's some things you can change. We are not asking you to move everything. We're not asking you to buy a trust today. Honestly, that first call is just to see if this is the right fit for you. And if you like working with us as well, we want to make sure that you guys like working with us at Paradigm Money Management and Paradigm Legacy Planners. I'm also going to say this: if you don't, if you go through that strategy session and we're not a fit, it's always great to have another friend in the community. I've always said that, is that the more friends in the community that we have, the better off we all are, because when that time rolls around, when you need someone to talk to, you know who's going to be the person you call. So thanks for coming to the webinar tonight. This is recorded. It's great because it was up all the time, and now we have a recording that's going to be sent out probably tomorrow or Thursday. And I want to say thank you to Stacy for making time today. She had back-to-back meetings, working with people.
8 today, Tom. 8 today.
Oh my God.
It was crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate having you. If that's anything else, I think we're going to sign off for tonight. Thanks for hopping on and giving us some of your time, and we'll be talking to you real soon here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.